Our bodies produce 25 million new cells
literally
every second.
The body of the divine.
It is impossible
It's everything that exists.
to claim a belief in oneness
The one body.
while separating oneself from the rest of the world.
Physical body of God. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is Truth Be Told, and it is our pleasure, our joy, and our responsibility for being out here in the world doing what we feel is needed to be done. So thanks for tuning in. This is the final week of the month looking at the body, and we're looking at the one body. And, one of the things that I know I'm guilty of is I used to, just call this my meat suit. It's just the thing that, I kind of drive around on this planet in, but really when I've been doing that, it's it's not necessarily disrespectful, but it's not giving it the full respect that it does deserve. This is mind, body, soul is all that manifestation of what we are, that deeper thing. And really, this month has been great for me, just kind of eye-opening to remind me to honor this thing, that it is, it's made out of God's stuff, and it deserves its, attention and respect. And so it's been powerful to lean into that. And also on that same note, this body, the one body, we include that as all of humanity, of all physical creation. It's all connected, and it's really amazing how intricate and interdependent all the little pieces are. So it's been fun. It's gonna be fun tonight. And with that being said, just want to add in, happy Pride, happy Juneteenth, happy Men's Health Mental Wellness Month, and happy Father's Day. This is all part of that one thing, and respect. So enjoy Truth Be Told.
As I've contemplated this topic of the body, what we've been talking about this month, and specifically this week where we talk about the one body and that connection to that one thing, sometimes it may be hard to see that connection. We look at our own bodies and maybe how they show up in the ways that we would like for them not to, or all the shoulds, all the things that we've been talking about. And so sometimes it may be hard to really sink into that idea that our bodies, this actual physical flesh and blood body, is the expression of the one thing, that one thing that is back of all things, that universal presence, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's not something that's outside of us and then here's our body, but instead our bodies are the only way that it expresses in this form. And so that we are literally the expression, literally the body of the divine. And so I was thinking about my past work. I was a psychotherapist, and so I had the amazing opportunity of meeting so many different people, so many different bodies, so many different expressions of the divine. And the one thread of commonality that ran through all of these interactions with people is that I could just look at someone and say, yeah, there it is. There's the divine. And it would look different in everyone. The expression of it would come in ways that are expected and sometimes in ways that were unexpected. And so I had the opportunity to work with many individuals who experienced cognitive deficits, life-limiting illnesses, just ran the gamut of experiences. And so I had this one individual that I worked with who had the presentation of fairly severe dementia and Alzheimer's related disease process. And she would be, disoriented, confused, limited ability to speak, all the typical things that you may see in that presentation, but she was able to write the most beautiful spiritual poetry. Like, it was amazing. This individual who, because of this disease process, had lost the ability to speak for the most part, was able to write amazingly profound spiritual poetry. And she used to give it to me. And I keep these little snippets, this little piece of paper. For me, is that representation that the divine, the divine bumping up against the circumstances of our life and then spilling over into expression, because it can't help but do that. And I witnessed that in flesh and blood with this individual, this spilling over the divine. And so it made me realize that no matter the body, no matter what that presentation may be, it is this unique expression of the divine. That the divine is speaking through every body, all bodies, in a unique way. And so it has made me, or encouraged me, to take a closer look at how I view my body. And how I have layered the shoulds or ought to, or oh my God, it's not enough sort of expressions onto this body. But this body literally is the expression of the divine. And I've said it a lot of times in the past, but for some reason lately it is just stuck. And it really has changed everything, shifted my perspective on my body, how I view it, how I take care of it, the things that I expect of it, the things I demand of it. And it's created a softening. And this is just the beginning. This is a process. It's not something that we arrive and boom, we're done, but it's a constant reflection. And so this week it's been a reminder that the divine expresses itself in all bodies, even this one.
I love that. That's really cool. That glimpse of the divine somewhere that, it's amazing how it creeps in a place like that, where there's almost like there's no filter,
Yeah.
Really cool.
Unexpected ways.
Yeah. I too have been having that feeling. It's like, to say it would be to say it in the same words, but each week the words have meant something deeper. This idea that we are the cells of the larger organism, or I don't know, kind of haven't found quite the analogy to accurately depict it in a way that feels the way that it, that it feels in here. Right. But it's like, yeah, wow, we really are, like, if you zoom out far enough, we're just these organisms crawling around this rock, and that doesn't in any way make it any less important,
right,
or valuable or impactful. It adds so much more value to it for me when I think of it. It's like, oh yeah, wow. So not only do I have my life and the things around me, but like my life is part of this whole thing. Wow. It's like, what would I be without the cells that make up me? Yeah, what would we be without us? What would this whole thing be without us? And I know that there's definitely not the words to really accurately portray that sense and that feeling, but yeah, it has meant something deeper and deeper each week this month. So I'm with you on that.
Well, and like that, each expression, my expression, your expression, the expression of my neighbor across the street, each is absolutely necessary. All the expressions that have ever been, all the expressions that ever will be, is necessary.
Yeah.
For this presence, this thing to express. It can only express that unique way through that unique body, mind, soul, of all the whole thing. And I think for me, I've lately just been kind of just reflecting on that, and it's like, oh, that's kind of mind blowing. And so but how shifting that is, because when we can see ourselves that way and we can see each other that way, I don't think I think it changes us in ways that are deep, like this, beyond this surface level stuff, but this deep changing of how we treat our bodies, how we treat the bodies of others, and how we treat the body of the planet body. I mean, it can't help when we really kind of digest the meaning of it. It can't help but shift.
Yeah. Out of the 370 billion people that have ever lived, you're the only you.
Right. Yeah. So, but you both.
Y'all couldn't handle another one of me.
Well, there's that side of it too.
Well, that's another conversation.
It just fosters that idea of how essential everybody is in their own unique thing. If I can, pass that on to the people that I strongly disagree with and recognize that they're part of this evolution, part of this process for all of us to discover and create who we are. It softens those edges a little bit. It helps us to enlarge our compassion and empathy for those that that could use support, and those that we don't want, we say we don't want to support because they're so anti what I believe in. But just recognizing that they are just as essential, they are that same divine spark of life, then maybe that can help me be a little more open to constructive conversation. And it's one of those, these conversations they help me to see the good in all that's there. Sometimes it's very hidden and hard to find, but it's all part of it.
Well, and isn't that interesting just how intertwined all of that really is, right? It's it's to take the easy route and go well, they're over there and they're that thing, and I'm over here and I'm this thing, and it's different, and screw them. That's such an easy way to just avoid, but not really avoid, right? We avoid the confrontation, but it just builds, the pressure builds. We're just trying to hold the lid on, Yeah. But to take the not so easy route to acknowledge that, to acknowledge those things, to acknowledge the movement that happens because of that boiling, and the movement that happens when it bubbles over, or when we actually are able to address it. Can we, before this bubbles over, can we address this? And where does that, there's a, the life itself has a direction. It's moving, Yeah. And we are not separate from that direction. That's for sure. In other news, the days of the rugged individual are coming to an end, or perhaps have actually been long gone. American rugged individualism, an idea whose origins date back to the American frontier, the mid to late 19th century, where land was sparsely populated and everybody had to fend for themselves. Living in isolation, having to provide everything needed for your own survival, not being able to lean on any sense of larger community, and specifically being independent from any government assistance, played a big part in creating altered attitudes that favored those tough enough to make it on their own. According to Wikipedia, through the mid-20th century, the concept was championed by Herbert Hoover's former Secretary of the Interior and longtime president of Stanford University, Ray Lehman Wilbur, who wrote, "It is common talk that every individual is entitled to economic security, The only animals and birds I know that have economic security are those that have been domesticated. And the economic security they have is controlled by barbed wire fence, the butcher's knife, and the desire of others. They are milked, skinned, egged, or beaten up by their protectors. During his 1928 election campaign, Herbert Hoover leaned in heavily on the American tradition of self-reliance and a hands-off government. His rugged individualism speech became a classic example of the conservative perspective in the U.S. From here, it seems that what was said and what actually happened have been two very different things. Martin Luther King Jr. pointed out years ago, this country has socialism for the rich, rugged individualism for the poor. But let's set politics aside and take a nice long look at the humanitarian impact of the beliefs of rugged individualism. Philosopher Karl Popper insists that we must recognize the nature of our humanity. We are social creatures to the inmost center of our being. The notion that one can be anything at all from scratch, free from the past, or unindebted to others, could not conceivably be more wrong. While the tenets of rugged individualism can seem appealing to some, allowing one to prove oneself to the world, like saying, "See, I am one of the strong ones," or "Look, Mom and Dad, I told you I could be someone." The reality of it is, in the world we currently live in, powering one's way to the top very often means tossing others aside. Rarely is a self-made individual self-made without exploiting others in order to get there, the impact of which are far and wide. Beyond this, we have often ignored the obvious interconnectivity that is a necessary part of this purported self-reliant lifestyle. Roads, cars, stop signs, stoplights, mail, shipping, food, grocery stores, farms, just to name a few unavoidable ways that we are connected in our modern world, let alone our human and inherent need for belonging and connection, which are obviously impossible alone. In an article published by Scientific American just this year, author Robin Nelson reminds us in their article How a Virus Exposed the Myth of Rugged Individualism, anthropologists have long recognized that exceptionally high degrees of sociality, cooperation, and communal care are the hallmarks of humankind. This interdependence has been key to our success as a species. Viewed this way, we humans have an evolutionary mandate to be generous and take care of one another. Americans are gaslit into thinking that they are immeasurably strong, impervious to the challenges people in other countries face. In reality, our social and economic support systems are weak, and many people are made vulnerable by nearly any change in their capacity to earn a living. Rugged individualism is a myth. The reality is, we are never exempt from the impact of others or the impact we have on them. And actually, quite the opposite. We are becoming progressively more and more reliant on each other. In his landmark book, In Over Our Heads, Harvard developmental psychologist Dr. Robert Kegan explains the mental burden of modern life may be nothing less than the extraordinary cultural demand that each person in adulthood create internally an order of consciousness comparable to that which ordinarily would only be found at the level of a community's collective intelligence. More simply put, we need to create an entire village network of support in our own brain, alone, and this goes far beyond physical support and even mental health. Spirituality in the 21st century has followed this same path. Believers of new thought and science of mind seem to have somewhat naturally aligned with the me-first attitude of the rugged individual mentality. There are many attributes of these belief systems that overlap, yet the myth is just as real. By only including the aspects that overlap, we exclude very important details necessary to making any new thought belief system work. It is impossible to claim a belief in oneness while separating oneself from the rest of the world. We do not live or practice in a vacuum. This does not alleviate us from the responsibility that we have to each other, to our individual practices and beliefs, and yet it encourages us to look beyond just this towards communal practices and the vast system of interactions and implications that exist amongst all of us. The myth of the rugged individual has run its course. The answer is embracing our true sense of oneness, the one body.
Yeah, all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I do, it's, the more I think about, kind of how, I'm sure I was not the only one that was raised this way, but it was this idea that you go to school, you get a job, and you do this, and you get a house, and you do, and all these things. And it was very it was in this very individualistic sort of lens.
Yeah.
And for me, it never felt right. I'm like, I wanted to, like, I remember, wanting just to have a big house and have all of my friends live there, and we grow vegetables in the garden, and we all, like, this communal sort of thing, selectively chosen, of course, but this idea, this kind of go it alone is exhausting. And it's also kind of this kind of go it alone in our spiritual life is also exhausting. That I think that's where, the things that we've talked about, vulnerability, authenticity, those things that really have to be present to really bolster this interconnection. I mean, it's already there, but I think authenticity, vulnerability, creating spaces of belonging, places of support, really bolster that interconnectivity in real life. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the more that we can do that and show up in that way, the more that we can rewrite some of the stamps that have been placed on our forehead.
Yeah.
Because it is, we've been talking about the body, and then it kind of just goes out from that we are this one body, this connection for one another. And it's just not an arbitrary connection, but it's like this supportive sort of urge to support, to nurture, to move, to hold. I mean, it has that energy about it. And so I think the more that we can create spaces to be authentic and vulnerable, the more that we can actually create this beautiful container for that to fall into.
Well, you mentioned that, growing up, it just didn't feel right. You wanted to have this communal kind of thing, right? And I guess I've always kind of just leaned into that. It doesn't feel right, and like there are just things in life that, didn't feel right. And so the communal activity, our connection that we're yearning, like I kind of, like, I thought this made sense. Man, there's been so much, I guess I'll just say science that I learned this month looking into all this, that supports all that, so I mean, we knew it kind of like from a sociological perspective. I mean, that's kind of how we have talked about it in our conversations. I knew it from that sense of like, this feels right, but the science behind, the go it alone, the I'm going to force it into working, or like we are literally going against our own intuition, our own inner drives. Like, scientifically speaking, like, our body sends the wrong signals. Our brain sends the wrong signals to our body when we're trying to go alone and do it alone. And like, I was like, oh my God. And the idea of this evolutionary mandate from that one quote, this week, really, like, it was like those words like were etched into my mind with like this, Dolby 7.1 surround sound, like voice of whoever, like evolutionary mandate. Like, yeah, we like to not care for each other. Literally creates this distress in our brains that sends signals and chemicals of trauma and stress. And so we have like entire populations walking around in constant over stress with like, those snapshots we talked about last week with like the signals being sent to the body and not processed. Like the whole process gets interrupted.
Right.
And we're trapping those messages in our body, like on a moment to moment basis, because we have this, I'll say we, to be nice about it, I guess. We have this like, gotta do it myself, self-reliance thing. And I don't know, I suppose if you were living in the middle of the desert or something in the frontier, like, or on the plains by yourself, that was a needed thing. But evolutionarily speaking, at this point in time, that's not where we're at. It's totally different. The science has just been mind-blowing to me this month.
Mm-hmm. I just think about, how much further we can really go if we really do like recognize, like, let's work together on everything. I think about like, the rugged individual that, I started my own business. I built it from the ground up all by myself. Started in my garage, and, I've got 1,000 employees. I built it all by myself. And like, what about those 1,000 employees? You've taken like, most of the benefit from it for yourself and kind of ignored those 1,000 people that have been, given their 40 plus hours a week at an hourly wage, and they're part of it, like it's just, But I also like the reference just to, the infrastructure that we have set up in this world. Like, really, you're not doing anything by yourself anymore.
Yeah. Or even like breathing, like the air, like the things you do impact the air you breathe. So if you're like, I was thinking about that, like, well, what if someone was like living off grid and truly thought like they're on their own, totally, getting all their own resources. It's like, you're getting energy from something. And so even if that is building a fire in your furnace, like, you can't have that fire and not really smoke into the air that everyone is breathing. We're literally that connected to each other. There is nothing, there's no way to go about life where you are completely disconnected from everybody else. And I mean, that's just one, there's so many other ways that that's true. It's like, it's impossible. It's actually impossible. Which is like, we're that connected. Like, could you imagine like a cell in one of your organs being like, fuck it. I'm out.
But it's amazing to see it. And I think, and also I think it's part of it too, is it's like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say you don't know something. Yeah. I mean, the three of us think we know stuff. There's a whole, like, little pinprick of the things we know, but it's okay. We don't have to know everything. And I think that kind of comparison model, that competition sort of model, I think that really discourages curiosity. It discourages saying, hey, I don't necessarily know that, but hey, please tell me more. Let me learn from what you know and from your experiences. And so I think that the more that we can create those spaces for curiosity, and that it's okay, and that we don't have to know it all, be it all, do it all, then I think that the more that we can lean into this interconnection, when it's okay to not to know everything.
Reverend Chris was reading my mind. I'm going to put this up. Said this is what cancer is. When Dan was talking about, like, what if one cell just said, nope, I'm out. I'm not participating anymore. That's what like cells run amok. They start doing their own thing and like crazy replication, trying to survive their own thing, but at the harm of the whole.
But then even that, they go and create their own community of cancerous cells.
Right. And so,
So
like,
even the
where do
cancer
we
knows it
see?
needs to be part of a community.
Where do we see, like large businesses that are just
Yeah.
like overly thriving at the detriment of everything else around it, destroying the communities and the environment where they live and prosper. And
Right.
yep, you're kind
Yeah.
of,
The more that we can lean into one another, it seems that's the key.
yep.
I think so.
Reverend Chris, reading my mind. Or maybe I'm reading.
We would like to take a quick break from the program to let you know a little bit about SEC. We're an intentional spiritual community with a vision of personal transformation and communal evolution, an authentic way of being, living, and viewing the world. Everything you could ever possibly want to know about this community and more can be found on our website at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. So come along for the adventure. Tuesdays we have Truth Be Told at 7 p.m. Eastern, which is what you're enjoying now. Thursday is The Gathering at 7 p.m. Eastern. This is a group experience where we take an even closer look at the topic for the week, how it shows up in our own personal lives, and the healing and transformative power of belonging and connection. On Sundays, we have Strip Down Sunday at 12:30, where we offer a streamlined approach to your Sunday morning experience through a short and sweet talk on our monthly theme. And now, the Second Sunday Experience, every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This is an evening experience that will demonstrate a new way of doing community. So be on the lookout for these events and so much more. If you can't already tell, we have a blast here at SEC. It is so much fun to explore these topics with you each and every week. It is our desire to not only share what we've learned, but to journey alongside each one of you as we navigate this adventure we call life. Our vision is to bring these teachings to everyday life in new and powerful ways. If you would like to support the vision of SCC and its continued evolution, we invite you to go to soulevolutioncollaborative.org and click on the donate button. All donations are tax deductible and serve to support this evolving ministry in its vision of personal transformation and communal evolution. And now, back to the show.
I bet you didn't know that our bodies produce 25 million new cells every second. 25 million cells a second. So in 15 seconds, your body produces more new cells than there are people in the United States of America. In 5 minutes, your body produces roughly the same amount of new cells as there are people on the entire planet. In 5 minutes. That's a lot of cells. So we're talking about the one body right now. And the one body means lots of different things to me. This is my one body. This is my body that I get to use here on this planet. That is, a connection to the spiritual, to the mental, all of that. This is the receiver, and the way that it works and operates. It's pretty cool. Now, I also talk about the one body, meaning the body of the divine, of spirit, the body of God, whatever you want to call it. It's everything that exists. We have this body. We have this planet, which is an intricate and well-formed ecosystem that is so interdependent. It's really cool. And then beyond that, we've got our solar system, galaxy, universe, all of that. It's the physical body of God, and that is something to really behold. Now let's go back to this example. If we're making 25 million cells a second, that means that we're also losing roughly 25 million cells a second. What happens to those cells? A lot of it, we breathe out. Some of it, it just processes and passes through our body. A lot of it just falls off as dead skin cells all the time. And a lot of that, the dead skin cells for sure, ends up as dust that ends up floating through the air, ends up in fields, a lot of it, in soil, becoming nutrients that really, the band Kansas, they were onto something when they said all we are is dust in the wind. Really, like we're constantly returning to dust over and over again all the time.
But that dust ends up in the field, ends up as soil and nutrients, and the crops use that to make food that ends up in my belly. So I am part of you, and you are part of me. Constantly. We are very interconnected, and that's pretty amazing to me. And then thinking about even how we are connected to our ecosystem. I breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants breathe in that carbon dioxide and give us back oxygen. This whole system is so intricate. It's, the ecosystem of the earth is very similar to the ecosystem of an individual human body. All these systems that work together for one collective whole. Now this is where I think humanity has gotten way off track, as we have lived in this way of competition, for one person to get all that's mine. That means that somebody else doesn't get what's theirs. We are ignoring huge parts of the human collective body, and that is leading us very far astray. It's not sustainable. And if we really want to get to a place where we open up to our deeper nature, to bigger creativity, bigger expansive views and ideas, and really our spiritual nature, we need to eliminate these old ways of thinking of competition and recognize that if we could come together and work together, knowing how interconnected we are, we have a great opportunity to really allow the human race to thrive, not just continue to survive. So our human body, our collective earth body, it's all a manifestation of the deeper mind. So let's open up to really, loving this body, loving this bigger body, and recognizing that we are all interconnected. And if we want to really thrive and be healthy as a whole ecosystem, we have to make that decision to do so.
You get the award for the most gross facts in a month.
Yeah. Nailed it.
It's in the mail. It's in the mail. Yeah. We have an evolutionary mandate. Just etched in my mind. Everything you just said. Yeah, we have an evolutionary mandate to care for each other.
Yeah.
What else do you need to say? That's it.
Yeah, I mean, and all those those facts and things that we now know that maybe we didn't know before, or maybe thought we never needed to know. It just supports that. Like that, it just kind of dials down just the amazing blueprint of our body, and how this is a blueprint that gets it's patterned over and over and over and over and over again in everything we see. So therefore, it is like this foundational blueprint, the divine has its blueprint in everything, and it just replicates. It is just repeated over and over again. These in the cellular level, these things working together in order to to release that no longer serves and add to what serves, and it's like it's always doing that. So it just shows that we are part of something greater, that we are participating, doing our own expression of that. I mean, what more can you say? I mean, it's just that it's pretty amazing. It's really, for me, it's like it creates, like, it taps into that urge for me of how can I do this? How can I show up in this way a little bit more each and every day? Not only caring for my physical body, but then how does that then allow me to care for others and care for the planet and do the things that are mine to do? Because isn't that if we're all doing what's ours to do, then it all just kind of, it flows in this kind of beautiful interconnected space. And I think that's something you said, Dan, like going against that intuition, or going against that innate way that we are born to be. It creates exactly what we're seeing: discord, discontent, dis-ease. Right. Causing all of those things. And so just to be able to listen to ourselves more not only our physical body, but that intuition, those things within us, because it knows. Like we said, the body knows, because it is part of that thing.
Well, and I think too, it's like, not that we necessarily talk about the Bible much, but the idea that God created us in its image, not necessarily true because it's in the Bible, but like we were created in the way that creation works.
Yeah.
Right. And so we create in that same way. And so part of our creation and evolution, like evolution has kind of shifted into, we evolve with the tools that we make, right? Because our evolution shifted when we started creating tools, right? And so part of our tools is like, the internet and computers and so much of what we see out in our lives, right? But like part of like that's all part of this spiritual thing too, right? Like all of this is part of it, and I say that because what we have created in that act of creation, we have connected ourselves so much more. Like it used to be where you knew the people that you lived, the town, the village, whatever that you lived in, you knew those people. And then, mail got created and you maybe started to connect with other people. And then blah, 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 blah. History fast forward. Now we have the internet and you can literally connect with people around the world. And so all of a sudden our mentality, our brains had to adapt to this idea of like being one was kind of this like super far out there idea that like, yeah, we're all one. But that really meant like we're all one here in our little village because we don't really know much else. Or we're one in this town, right? But like to be one and to be able to connect with the entire world at a click of a button. Oh, so I it's like we're learning. Like this is really what it comes down to. Like we're in that process of what does it mean to really be part of the whole when the whole is this big, like it's huge, and we have it at our fingertips. We have created the possibility of, that didn't exist before. That was a concept before. That was this super far out thought, but now it's like right there, right in front of us,
I love that, the idea of how we're interconnected. Rev Ryan alluded to it, and then Dan, you took it further. So kind of like that micro to the macro thing, like it's that same pattern over and over, starting at, the subatomic particles in an atom, how they work together, and then how those atoms work together to make the molecules that make the cells that make the expanding is really cool. One other thing that you just said, now I'm losing it.
It's coming back.
Mm-hmm. It was
Tip of the tongue.
no, now I'm afraid it's not. I shouldn't have gone back to the micro macro was the first thing that jumped out. It was the other thing of, okay, I got it.
There it is. It came back.
You're right. Poof. So, okay. I think everybody, we all have this sense of taking care, like there's an innate sense that you got to self-preserve. And then we also have this bigger sense, that we have to take care of ours. You hear it all the time. You're like your family first, or you take care of your family. And the way I see like society evolving is that the people that I would say are more progressive and looking forward compared to like people that are kind of like more constricted and, want to hold back. Like they are the people that I know that are like ultra conservative. They're generally, good people, and they really take care of like their immediate family. And the way I see like people that have more progressive and futuristic approach just have a bigger idea of who is family. We are all family. We are all one. And so how do we take care of everyone? That's the hard question, but that's what has to happen if we ever want to really get to what our next stage is and, prevent any breakdown of what's come so far.
Yeah.
And I think it's just us, everyone doing our part, Dan, Chris, myself, Soul Evolution Collaborative. It's that it is kind of doing our part of showing up in the world in a particular way that supports this.
Yep.
And to that end of connection and community, the second Sunday experience. So this is our Sunday evening experience where we come together and kind of explore what community looks like, and maybe a new way, a way that maybe you've never seen before. So we are exploring and evolving as we go. So second Sunday experience, this is every Sunday at 7 p.m. And you can find all the information to join, kind of what to expect, as well as the link on our website, soulevolutioncollaborative.org. All right, folks, we'll see you next week.